Hey there, welcome to episode 123 of the Let's Innovate for Vegas audio program. I am your host, the managing director of the Innovate for Vegas Foundation, Dan Hugo, recording this at 9:20 a.m. on Tuesday, June 24, 2025. This is the final episode of our third fiscal year, so why not do an episode on thoughts on 3 years by yours truly, the only remaining participant who has been here from the beginning. That's neither good nor bad. Actually, it's probably good. But if you're not familiar with the Innovate for Vegas Foundation, let me tell you, we are based on the original Code for Vegas sort of brigade that was part of Code for America. It formed shortly after Code for America did, I think. I have reviewed the history in previous episodes. I want to say it was it 2017? No, 2014? I can't remember. That you'd think that would be important. It wasn't 2017. I moved to Vegas in 2013, and it was right around then, but I was working for Intel, so I was not part of the Code for Vegas that was operating here in Vegas at the time. There was a collaboration effort with the city of Las Vegas, basically with Code for America and then Code for Vegas here in the greater Vegas area, working on the Open Data project, and we'll talk about that later. We rebooted in January 2022. We were intending to be the Code for Vegas reboot. When it became clear that Code for America was going through some trials and tribulations internally, we decided to form our own Nevada nonprofit corporation called the Code for Vegas Foundation. We would then, so that was in June of 2022. Our fiscal year ends on the 30th of each year, so got started right away. And we applied for and received our IRS determination as a 501c3 public charity in October of 2022. We renamed ourselves as a result of a few things, which I've talked about in previous episodes, to become the Innovate for Vegas Foundation. We redid our tax name. That was just a letter, really. I think it took 60 days or something like that. So we renamed, and so we have been Innovate for Vegas Foundation effectively for 3 years. We were going by our original name back in the old days, but we are the Innovate for Vegas Foundation. 3 fiscal years about to wrap up as we enter our 4th. And so this audio program has been around for right around 123 episodes now. And we talk about a lot of things, specific projects and now initiatives and various methodologies, comments on workflows and the nature of being a civic volunteer. And the list goes on. You can go ahead and check our entire catalog and listen in. We even had guests now and then, and I think it's something we really need to get back to as we enter our 4th year, start looking at more engagement along these lines as well. Maybe even return of the hackathon. That'd be wonderful. But before we can get there, we have to end our 3rd year, so here we are. I was going to go through a few things from a personal perspective. Again, there's no one else around now to go into this. The reason I say that is our board of directors has 2 empty seats, and our organization is very thin, so there isn't like a staff of 25 people or advisory, or there's not a lot of population. So keep it very thin. Participants will be good. I need to get some participants in the mix as well. So all this for year 4. So on the end of this auspicious occasion, the end of our 3rd fiscal year, the final episode of our 3rd fiscal year, I thought I might run down some personal observations, what I've learned, quite literally the good, the bad, and the ugly, if you're a spaghetti Western fan, of the 3 years as we look forward to year 4 and beyond. Hopefully, wherever you have, oh, by the way, our purpose statement, I usually say that up front. Our purpose on file with the IRS and the Nevada Secretary of State as a nonprofit public charity is to enable and encourage ideation, innovation, and implementation to make our communities better. It is purposely vague. I don't say it has to be apps. It's not about tech. It's It's ideation, innovation, and implementation. It's thinking about stuff, coming up with a way to do interesting and possibly new things and making them happen, with the goal being elevating communities. Pretty simple, or it could be. So hopefully wherever you found this audio program, you're able to locate the episode description, which contains the show notes, including a summary that I'll read to you. The standard 4 links, although next week I will announce our new website. I don't really want to have 5 links, so we'll see how we break that up. I don't have a link to it right now, but we are launching a separate take, which I talked about last week, the DOT Foundation. So innovateforvegas.org will remain, but it will be much more focused on our initiatives and our volunteers and so on. And innovateforvegas.foundation will be where business information can be found, our business IDs, our tax filing, our determination letter, I should say, tax return filings, another one coming up here, our 990 filings, and all that fun business stuff. And hopefully this will make crystal clear the difference between operating a charity and participating in one from a transparency standpoint. And this goes in general along with my message about, being transparent, recognizing participation, enabling people to discover that we even exist and what we're working on and so on. So not a new concept so much. And we're not splitting administratively. We're only splitting our web presence. So when you find the Innovate for Vegas website collection, depending on what you need to do, you can go to the .dev site for some other stuff and the .xyz stuff site for the sandbox stuff. But we'll get into that in a future episode. So yeah, look for that coming soon, like next week, as our new fiscal year begins. But first, the summary of today's episode. The next episode of this audio program will be on the first day of our 4th fiscal year. That should sound familiar. A little over 3 years at this undertaking. So why not share a few end-of-year thoughts and notions? So here they are. So I mentioned our innovateforvegas.org website, Innovate F-O-R Vegas, no spaces, .org. And like I said, it will become our initiative and volunteer participant focused side of our web presence. No link to the DOT Foundation yet. projectact.info, that's project-ACT, stands for Autonomous Cohort Tessellation and Autonomous Cohort Transformation, but that's sort of a back burner element of the doublet Project Act .info. The idea is to develop a platform, set of tools and methods to enable discovery and promote connection, communication, and collaboration between civic, volunteer, and other types of cohorts of one or more people without the need to form a corporation, become a nonprofit, become a fiscal sponsor, fill out membership forms, all that silliness. This is about connecting people who want to do good or interesting things. It won't be limited to civic volunteerism either. agileforvolunteers.org, Agile F-O-R volunteers, no spaces, .org that's the public or sort of community version of our own internal Agile for Volunteers. By saying, we have Agile for Volunteers within our organization's repository collection. That's where we're doing our primary development. When we spin it off to Agile for Volunteers for everybody to try out, we'll obviously have our take on it. So we'll maintain our internal kind of fork of Agile for Volunteers. And maybe they'll all merge together and everything will be unified. But generally speaking, Agile is not intended to be the one true way, but a toolkit of sorts to build a process that works for any particular team or organization. So we're kind of doing it, we're learning by doing. Agile for Volunteers as an initiative within Innovate for Vegas Foundation for our initiatives and the way our whole team can advance causes. And then agileforvolunteers.org will be the sort of community collaboration, take this and fork it and make it better for yourself and maybe merge things back in that others could benefit from, and so on and so on. Finally, Mastodon.Vegas, our geo-focused Mastodon server, which also needs to launch next week with our fourth fiscal year. This I intend to be something of a donation driver, or at the very least, a hey, look what we're up to platform. No, we are not developing Mastodon. It's an already existing platform that was developed by a different charitable organization. I think they're a charity in the US. I think they started in Germany, if I'm remembering correctly. There's a lot of companies doing cool things. So I think they're in Germany, but also a nonprofit, possibly a charity foundation of some sort here in the US. Mastodon becoming world famous. Don't even mess with Blue Sky. ActivityPub, a real Fediverse, a huge collection of platforms and tools and methods and services and ideas, not just Mastodon. So ActivityPub, very well known, growing by leaps and bounds, and probably better, not getting the attention that AT Proto and Blue Sky are getting. So good times. The ActivityPub based Mastodon server will fit into our overall plans, especially with MyMuni and Welcome, to be forward-looking with the use of the Fediverse decentralization, ActivityPub, activity streams, at the same time looking back and doing email and some of those classic methods of communicating and making people aware. So an information awareness platform is what those are. So using ActivityPub as part of that overall infrastructure is part of the plan, and Mastodon is a nice toe in the water to get the party started. So on that note, let's and like I said, there will be more links, or a rejiggering or an adjustment, a tuning of links, I hope, next week, because we'll be adding at least one to this list, and we're actually adding 3 total domains: Innovate for Vegas, that we have .org, innovateforvegas.foundation, .dev, D-E-V, and .xyz. Now the foundation, dev, and XYZ are not active yet, so next week, but just, so I've said them, but I have not provided links to them. So if you visit them and you find a parked page or something, don't fret. The good, and I referred to this already, the good, the bad, the ugly. So the good, we have identified several possibilities for real difference-making initiatives. Some of them are in the early stages of definition, of course, and all of them so far are self-driven. This means we are not beholden to sponsor or partner gates. We don't have to ask for anything. We don't really have any costs at this moment, so there's no need for sponsor funding. And these initiatives can always be on deck for continuing development and improvement. So if you have a project or initiative that's driven by an external third party, a commercial interest, a municipal partner, and they decide that, we don't want to do this anymore, then you have to separate. Do we continue working on it without you? Do we have costs and expenses? Is there intellectual property that you want to retain? By having all of our initiatives self-driven, we have no concerns in this area, and there's really no reason to end our initiatives. I always tell people, do you know when Microsoft Word got started? It wasn't last year. So sometimes an initiative that works can exist for years and can have many people contribute to it and can over time evolve and adapt, improve. And it's a great way to join or to kind of get the lay of the land. If you say, instead of trying to participate as a newcomer to all this in an initiative that is still in its very early stages, I might start off by looking at the MyMuni project initiative, something in the MyMuni initiative, a project about front end or database or something that looks interesting. Maybe there's a bug you could fix. So having our own collection of initiatives enables ongoing contribution and participation, and none of these need die. We also have more flexibility with who can do what. We don't have to ask permission for anything. Ask not permission, but forgiveness. We have moved much more towards general civic volunteerism than our origin story and affiliation with Code for America was emphasizing. Obviously, Code for America is a different headache that I've talked about previously. Our notions of inclusivity and diversity are about skills and interests and background of civic volunteers. With anyone with any story, anyone with any story is enabled and encouraged to make their communities better. So we don't have the resources nor the inclination to promote, because we're not hiring. And I've done an entire episode about this. We don't hire people. So people who want to participate, there is no test. There is no, are you in the right statistical or ideological bin or identity category? None of that stuff. Do you want to? Are you? The initial inclusivity notion was coders and creators, but it can be more diverse. I'm sorry, it can be more inclusive across a larger range, whatever that range might be. And diversity is about ideas and interests and skills and desires to augment those. So you might have a coder who has a lot of diverse background. You might have a creator with a diverse background. And how do they mingle together? And how do we make those skills turn into magic? So yeah, we focus a lot more. I'm kind of hand waving here because I've done an entire episode about this, but generally speaking, over the 3 years, we've moved towards, sort of a goal oriented. We really want to elevate communities. We don't want to worry too much about statistics. So, and then general civic volunteerism, a result of people saying, I'm not a coder, and the civic tech sort of subset, I think, is too limiting and too short-sighted. And you will find the most civic tech organizations have to remind potential participants, as we used to, well, it's not just tech. It's not just coding. So we start from that. We start with that notion from the beginning. Innovate for Vegas. Innovation can take many forms. Innovation is, by its very nature, inclusive and diverse. Based on a lot of discussion, practical experience, and my own time in the tech industry for a few decades now, our Agile for Volunteers initiative should make civic volunteerism something one can take part in with some clarity and transparency, with a few assumptions up front that will help avoid some of the pitfalls of pure volunteer efforts, which may cause them to stall. And I've talked about this in previous episodes, but I do find the Agile for Volunteers initiative that we are working on for our own use will become an important component of civic volunteer organizations in some form. Like ideally, version 1 of Agile for Volunteers will improve to version 2 and 3 based on other people taking a look at it. It is inspired by pure Agile, not the Agile industrial complex. So we'll see what unfolds there. But for our own uses, hopefully we can turn our initiatives into ongoing developments, as I described, without depending on hidden knowledge. Oh, we never did write that down. Or the notion that we must specify everything up front. It's hard to specify version 4 when you're not done with version 1. So we don't have to do that. We can evolve our developments using input from our whole team, including the community at large that we hope will be making use of our efforts successfully, ideally. So adoption will be important and participation more so. So we'll see if we can get Agile for Volunteers in a usable state early in our fourth fiscal year. As soon as yours truly is less distracted with Administrata, I can get back to the sleeve rolled up take on day-to-day civic volunteerism. The notion of reaching out beyond Greater Vegas crystallized in our Project ACT initiative. I've described that, the autonomous cohort tessellation, and built into the Agile for Volunteers design, the ability to discover the nature of different initiatives and component projects and the lay of the land, the way things fit together, the current work that people are pursuing, and so on and so on. It's something that I think will help address reduced levels of interest and participation in the civic volunteer space across the country, and most definitely here in the Greater Vegas area. In other words, if you can see what's going on and you can discover so that you can see what's going on, you may be in Vegas, you may be somewhere else, but if you can then visit a particular initiative, hey, I'm interested in my Muni, and you can see what people are working on in the current iteration. You can see, and none of this is magic. You can see how things fit together, how the user stories and features fit together, and how they're grouped in epics for work, and the themes involved, and the overarching plan, the blue sky documents that describe the overall. What are we trying to do here, and why? So all of these things in a sort of a canonical format, a canonical structure, will make them easier to discover. And now that AI is coming onto the scene so strongly, too strongly perhaps, we can make we can make use of some new ways of discovering on a more granular basis, perhaps the match between, hey, I have some free time and I'd like to spend it on a open source community elevating initiative or component project. That notion can be connected, hopefully, more closely with some possibilities rather than being presented with 30,000 search results when you Google or use GitHub or GitLab or all these tools that are very opaque, like search for JavaScript open source. Don't do that. You'll get a lot of results. By the way, these are only partial lists. I don't want to do a 10-hour episode, so those are a couple of the good things. It's been a learning experience for 3 years, and learning is rarely a bad thing. I have learned through some headaches. The Code for America stuff was silly, obviously, and our current state of affairs with our empty board seats is a minor frustration. But in both cases, ultimately that opened the path for improvement and realizations and learning experiences that have helped with growth and hopefully a better understanding, but also, I think, ultimately a better direction. So I think if we can find some new cool board members, I think we'll be better off. So better to make change than suffer not making change. The bad, to dovetail on what I just said about reaching out beyond Greater Vegas, we're not there yet. While we did start off our early days 3 years ago with people showing up, dubious, the people did show up. There was, a room full of people, 30 people at our rally at Tech Alley, 15-ish or so would show up at our monthly hackathon meetup. The dubious wisdom of Woody Allen is not really sufficient. So reaching out beyond Vegas is one way to try to increase the radius of possibility, but getting people to participate, interest and participation are critical here in Vegas as well. It's kind of why we're doing this. So yeah, showing up is not really sufficient. I have mentioned this of the ecosystem here in Vegas in general, that the 1-9-90 distribution can really make it challenging when the 90s, the 90% of the population spectators, show up, look around, and wander off. Oh, there's no free food? The 1%, the leaders, the people that drive, that don't see obstacles, they see opportunities. The ones are hard to find, and probably they're off doing entrepreneurial innovation things. But the ones and the nines are the people who empower the ones with participation. They show up, but they are often following the lead of the ones. And this you're not always a 9 forevermore. Sometimes it's the scenario, the situation, the setting, the environment, the particular undertaking, whatever it is. You can be a 90 sometimes. Most people when they watch sports are 90s, but sometimes they play sports and then they're 1s and 9s. So to be literal. So the 1s and 9s are the people who will make a real difference in a variety of ways. The hope is that enabling and encouraging them will lead to that difference making. So far, though, the lack of interest locally has been troubling, and so that makes it a bad thing. So we need to up our game even more. And that's where board members here locally who are willing to tell the story to just hype us up a little bit, I think that will be invaluable. I think non-local board members are also invaluable, and that's one of the reasons I think we should grow to 5. The original Code for Vegas, when it was related directly to Code for America, had a fairly specific and functional relationship with the city of Las Vegas, having collaborated on the open data implementation about 10 years ago. I think it was like 11 or 12, which is still operational today. And I've talked about this in a long time ago. At the time we talked about it as an episode, I had both the 2 people that were doing GIS, Geographical Information Systems, which supports the open data platform for the city of Las Vegas. They are down to 1 of those 2 people. They collaborated, Code for Vegas collaborated on the open data implementation about 10 years ago, which is still operational today. Unfortunately, none of the people involved back then with the city are around. So there's very little recognition of the value of this sort of collaboration into the future, leaving us needing to prove our worth. This was told to me specifically by a high-level city staffer. I think I've talked about this in passing in a previous episode, leaving us needing to prove our worth. Show us what you got. Just kind of frustrating. And this is not necessarily the mark of a so-called global innovation hub. this is my own personal experience in Silicon Valley, the notion that, hey, we formed a charity organization and we want to help develop job skills and life skills and elevate communities with open source development of not only code projects but other innovations. We're here in the global hub of innovation that is the greater Vegas area, and the response is, well, you got to show us something first. That can be disheartening and frankly not a good thing. The good news, though, is that we are thus not thinking about municipal partnerships first, which means we have a longer road, but we also own that road. We are not beholden to City of Las Vegas, City of North Las Vegas, City of Henderson, any of the other various cities here in Southern Nevada. We can work directly with our real customers and partners, the people, the locals, and maybe the visitors, to see what we should try to accomplish and actually pursue accomplishing it without waiting to prove our worth. There's a general weakness, in my opinion, with regard to the innovation culture here in the greater Vegas area, which makes it all the more challenging to engage with potential civic volunteers if they don't grok the notion, so to speak. So an essential component of an innovation culture in general is comprehension of the so-called long tail, the realization that value for times and effort and expertise contributed today may return later or even much later, if at all, and sometimes from other places, not directly, not a direct connection between I volunteered on this project and returned, or some return came to me from that project. It may be once or twice removed even, who knows? And there's no such thing as a free lunch, which I think is a lesson yet to be learned in the greater Vegas area. They'll get there. To end this section on an optimistic note, though, and again, there are a few bad things, but luckily not so many because I'm still here. These items in the bad section are simply goals to pursue as part of our growing organization's purpose. So bad things are merely things to work around. They're problems to solve. It is important to recognize these and a few others because, as the saying goes, the first step to solving a problem is admitting there is one. And in my opinion, there is more than one, and I admit that. We can do things better, but we can also surround ourselves with better partners, collaborators, fans, supporters. So they really need to know about us. So discovering us is one of our challenges. We need to be out there more, even if we is me at this time, and we'll build. If we can double in size, the first 3 or 4 levels of doubling will get us into a far better condition, and then we don't have to double anymore. But if we could get a full board of directors of 3 or as many as 5 would be wonderful. And if we can get some progress on a couple of our initiatives and get more participation from there and so on, I think we're in good shape. So the bad fuels improvement and eventual good. But let us not forget the ugly. There are always ugly parts. These to provide insight and motivation into our future. So the ugly parts are necessary evil, if you like. So I don't want to spend too much time or energy on these, and I don't want to consume too much of yours in describing them. So I'll be fairly brief here. The business of governing a nonprofit with what I would call lofty goals is something to take seriously. Our governance, our directors, and if we can connect with advisors and our collaboration partners by extension at some point, need to be serious and committed in as much as a volunteer participant can be, mostly in the areas of advocacy of the purpose, basically tell the story, be fans of the organization that you are a director for. Tell the story, represent the mission, be excited about possibilities that may be a result of your excitement just for participating. You know what? Sometimes being a part of something, and if you can be in the right place at the right time and tell the right person about the story, good things will follow, and it will be that much closer to your return on your investment. Hopefully, we will connect and align. Let me fix that one typo there. We will connect and align better with our next board of directors membership. We certainly have work to do in general, but not a ton. I tell people the commitment is essentially probably quarterly board meetings or really ad hoc board meetings as needed. And then an annual board meeting is the sort of the legal minimum. We have had several interactions over our 3 years that appear promising, but which actually fall into the common and unproductive ghost protocol, as I like to call it. Ghosting, when you just don't respond to anyone anymore. where that promising interaction ends without any follow-up, any explanation, or even termination. Like, hey, just tell me that you're not going to follow through on what we talked about. And this has happened so many times, it's become the norm. It is the standard. I'm always pleasantly surprised when I do hear back from people, but instead, silence. This devalues the effort of anyone expending their volunteer time, effort, and expertise. Why would I want to volunteer for something if I know no one cares enough to respond to an email or pick up a phone or show up when they say they're going to? And that's from city staff to non-governmental organization staff to normal people. Showing up is the bare minimum, not sufficient, but necessary. And this can have lasting effects on those involved and those who might want to become involved in our community elevation initiatives. You know what they say about an empty restaurant? Nobody goes there. A massive culture shift in this so-called global innovation hub is needed and is unlikely in the near term. But this means we need to make our way without relying on the unreliable, I should say. So we cannot rely on people showing up when we know people don't show up. We cannot rely on receiving a reply when we know that people don't reply. So unreliability breeds a lack of dependence on the unreliable. That's where we are. So this is a lesson learned a few times so far. I consider it an ugly thing because I would hope that people would be more supportive of such things. And I will locate those who are. So we'll get around the ugly with that approach. There is some legacy territoriality to contend with in our outreach beyond Greater Vegas. Perhaps this is due to the catastrophe that was Code for America and the rug pull regarding the brigade program, or maybe some other source of frustration, but horizontal and bottom-up collaboration does not appear to be so attractive, with the apparent desire to reboot the Code for America approach anew. So I think former brigades are exactly the wrong people to engage with. Our lesson here: to reach out to the next generation of not civic tech and brigades and so on, but civic volunteers who want to be a part of elevating their own communities and collaborating with others from other places, locally and from other places. Making a difference does not require advice and consent from on high, and so we pursue efforts starting local and reaching out to peers, not waiting to be allowed or accepted by top-down organizations. We don't have to apply. We don't have to fill out any forms. We just try to do the right thing. And we can collaborate with others at will if they want to join in, or if we can join their efforts, and everybody wins, so much the better. No permission required. Lesson learned from our Code for America interactions, one we need not relearn. And I think I did one episode. I really don't want to talk about Code for America too much, other than what we might learn from the top-down approach and an over-focus on civic tech and on federal level projects. Start local, bottom up. You know your users when you try to elevate your community. You don't have to do anyway. I did a whole episode about Recoding America and the what's it called? The civic tech community playbook, practice playbook, like something like that. There's a whole episode about it. I think it's episode 118, I think it is. Something like that. There's, so this territoriality is just a problem in general. Cannot possibly spend time trying to convince people that the thing that pulled the rug out from under you is not the thing to return to. So we're really focused on trying to do this in a new way that empowers more local people, more small teams, more. You don't have to be a nonprofit. You shouldn't have to do the paperwork and pay the fees and so on if you just want to do something good. And you shouldn't have to ask if you can join another group of people that are talking about doing similar things. So that's a few of the ugly things. Like I said, I'm not going to spend too much time on that. And plus, the ugly things are just things to fix. So if we can't fix those, then we shouldn't try to pursue community elevation, which is just more ugly and good and bad. So why? As Simon Sinek says, start with why. I have found over the years that becoming involved in some way in one's locality is ultimately valuable, definitely on the long tail timeline, but also through simple awareness, just knowing the way things work and what to expect. I've described this previously when I was a SNAP volunteer in the city of Sunnyvale. Sunnyvale neighbors actively prepared. You go through earthquake and first response, civilian first response, filling the gap until the professional first responders can arrive on the scene of a disaster, dealing with earthquakes and fires and flooding and triaging injured people and the whole list of things. So unfortunately, when I had a house fire, I knew exactly what to expect from beginning to end, and it all worked the way it was supposed to. I didn't have to feel panicked. I didn't have to be frustrated or scared. It worked exactly as it was supposed to. And when the Red Cross was asking me if I wanted a hotel room for a couple of days, which is what they do in such situations, I said sure. And they said, you're probably one of the most calm people we've ever worked with, given what's going on. That's sort of strange. And I said, well, did all this training, everything's working the way it's supposed to. I'm safe. I don't think anybody got injured. So everything else, this is a lesson and an insurance claim. So it's good to know how things work around you, especially if you rely on them. So it's a connection to the way things work and maybe to the way things do not work. And it's useful to have those connections for anyone who cares to understand, and perhaps with a fraction of that group who does care to understand, actually cares to try to make a difference. So fractions of fractions. With many of my endeavors and undertakings, whether Innovate for Vegas or anything else, over the years, this is true. Whenever I'm asked why I pursue this or that, whatever it is, my honest answer is usually because I want to see if it will work. Will I solve the problem I set out to address? Will it fall short? Will it exceed expectations? There is only one way to find out, usually. If we do take some time to look around at our localities to observe the way things work and the way they don't, which parts are working well, which are not, we have a starting point. And I think for the fraction of a population that would try to proactively pursue those starting points for positive change, there is only one way to find out. So this mindset is usually, I think it's very entrepreneurial in general. I think entrepreneurs will kind of be shaking their heads like, yeah, I can see that. This is not an entrepreneurial startup effort, though. You have to have an entrepreneurial bent when it comes to solving community problems, elevating communities. The return on your investment, again, might come much later, if at all, but you will know. There's a community, I think it's on the southeast side of the Vegas area, actually not in the city of Las Vegas. If I recall, they may be just on the edge. Either way, they had a pothole problem, and when they weren't being fixed, they just got together and started filling potholes themselves. So they figured out how to fix them, and they fixed them. You can always wait for someone else to do something, or you can roll up your sleeves and do it. I would like to find other people, proximal or distal, with a similar bent. People who show up, which is the bare minimum, and take an interest and actually execute. Let us not forget execution. These are all good to know. These people that do this are good to know. Great to know even, because they are the people who take serious matters that need to be taken seriously. They take serious matters seriously. They will tend to follow through. They show up and follow through, these are all great things. And they are people to show up for because they show up. And in this case, I don't mean physically showing up. I mean, they show up. They are part of. When I think about it, maybe that's what Woody Allen actually meant. Showing up doesn't just mean sitting in a chair and saying, I'm here. It means really showing up. I'll have to re-examine my use of that quote. So the people that follow through, they are the people to show up for because they show up. You can call it a filter perhaps, but if you can get the people who really take a proactive interest and who show up in the extended version of what that definition might be, they show up and actually do things, and so they're here for it. I think probably here for it is what people really mean, or what that definition would be. I'm here for it. I think that implies that you're going to follow through, but it's a form of filter. Pardon me. We can know the people that do show up are the people who do everything else. Year 4, coming to the end, don't worry. Our new fiscal year, 2025-26, begins on 1 July, which happens to be a Tuesday next week. So we can kick off the new year with an aspirational episode next week. So briefly, obviously, we need to find new, proactive, interesting, and interested directors to fill the empty seats on our board. I would like to grow our board to 5 directors if possible, with at least one other than myself here in Vegas, but we'll see. Filling out our minimal 3 is essential, of course. If you're curious, the IRS really likes to see 3 unrelated, not moms and sisters and brothers and uncles and whatever. So 3 unrelated board members for charity organizations. This is essential. 3 is essential. This is essential. So that's kind of like task 0. I doubt very much we will have our board filled out by the 30th of June when I need to file our annual list update with the Secretary of State. So I'll have to file yet again sometime soon after. Hopefully we can get to 5 and I'll just refile with our filled out board. Agile for Volunteers needs to get into usable shape. It is not always obvious, but switching focus between the business of operating a charity organization and the day-to-day task focus on initiatives, that is a tricky switch, as it turns out. Some people call it cognitive load, and I kind of agree with that. This is one of the reasons splitting the public-facing online presence has become interesting, to make it clear that there are 2 parts to our organization. They're different, so that we can be transparent but also focused usefully on our different audiences. Some people might be curious about the structure of our organization and the board membership or the history or the legal status. We're very upfront with our business ID and our, here's where you find information about our filings on the IRS website. So we're not rehosting, right? You're getting it from an authoritative source and we're pointing to it. So when you're searching for that kind of stuff, the foundation website is about the business of the Nevada nonprofit corporation known as Innovate for Vegas Foundation. But if you want to know what sort of initiatives we're working on, who's contributing their time, effort, and expertise, the day-to-day, the why are we doing this and what are we doing? You're out in the community and you're curious about things. What's the latest thing I can try out and all that? The .org website. So switching between those is not free, if you like. Outreach and engagement via Project Act and other efforts. Project Act is a piece, as a tile in the mosaic, is still essential, but we have some local first initiatives that really need attention, which I think will be useful in general. Challengers.Vegas being one of them, but there are others. There is something of a pendulum. One side of the swing is a local focus. On the other, as it swings back in the other direction, it's more of a focus on general purpose problem solving that is not tied to our oasis in the desert. That's how you collaborate with others. If Linus Torvalds built Linux for himself and then he asks other people to try it out, you're going to get some adoption, but eventually you have to say, oh, I'm building this for everyone, and it also happens to work for myself. So the stuff that we work on, because we're not beholden to sponsors and partners in our early initiatives, those initiatives don't need to be focused on a particular partner or locality. We can build them so that they work in Vegas, but that they also work elsewhere, so that other people might take what we're working on, collaborate or extend, etc. So everybody learns, everybody wins. That's the plan. So the pendulum swings one way, then the next, to one extreme to the next. The period might be 3 years. Year 4 might need to add a pendulum to that mix. 2 pendulums out of phase. So that's the episode for this week. Some thoughts. I didn't really get too crazy. Occasionally this has been annoying and frustrating. Mostly, though, it is an endeavor that I am particularly interested in for a variety of reasons, which I only touched on here. Someday we'll have an actual interview, or even better, maybe I will be on someone else's audio program or video stream or whatever, and we can talk about some of these things. The Greater Vegas area is not good at that. So that's one of the areas we as a city, but as a region, as a locality, that's something we really need to work on, is celebrating the people who are trying to do good things, whether they're winning hackathons or they're inventing new water-saving technologies, or they're launching a new startup that will be the next unicorn and that will gentrify the Greater Vegas area. Whatever it is, we don't do a good job of celebrating or even recognizing that. And so that's one of the areas we also need to focus on more. And the My Muni initiative includes some of that. So there will be many more times, many more opportunities to talk about all of these things in the next episode 124 and the one after that, and so on and so on. So I'll leave this one here. Thank you for your support. Thank you if you've considered donating to our cause. Hopefully we'll give you a good reason in our 4th fiscal year. By the way, our $50,000 gross receipts cap that comes with a 1023-EZ filing, which is what we filed 3 years ago, that cap will go away. So entering year 4, we can accept. We only got like $30 in donations because we really didn't ask for money, because we really don't need money thus far. But as we start rolling out some of our initiatives and as they become functional, there probably will be some implementation and deployment costs and so on, then cloud hosting and whatever we can't get for free or reduced rates. So donation drivers will be good. And eventually you'd like to have sponsors at our hackathons. We can have victuals, which is what everybody wants. And we can start doing more cool stuff. Only some cool stuff is free. So on that note, be sure and check out our website, and coming soon, check out all of our websites. No, definitely check out the foundation website when it launches, and consider donating or supporting our efforts or participating. And if you are a young person, bring your parents. They're always welcome. Take care. Thank you for listening. And yes, congratulations to the Innovate for Vegas Foundation, completing 3 fiscal years, commencing year 4. Take care. Bye-bye.